Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Human Intelligent Dialogue. It's a pleasure to have you all here. So, depending on when you're listening in, it's either good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, listening or watching in. Like you all know, I always try to bring different speakers from different perspectives, but under that human capital intelligent umbrella. And so today, and really is going to be kind of timely because it'll be coming out in October, or if you're listening to it, it is October or afterwards, maybe depending when you listen to it. We're going to be talking about a rather interesting subject that I'm seeing a lot of information come out. My colleague and I, Nate, have spoken quite a bit about it. We've actually co-presented on it too. And I thought he would bring in a real interesting, unique perspective and for organizations to keep in mind. So I'd like to welcome Nate Swann to talk to us a little bit about a topic that I hope you'll find interesting under neurodiversity and under that umbrella and what that's all about and why it's important for organizations. So, Nate, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Edwin. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of share the great news of what neurodiversity can really bring to an organization when applied the right way.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So tell us, Nate, tell us a little bit about you. Why am I inviting you here? I know why, but I'd like the audience to know a little bit about it.
Sure thing. So I started my career as a 16-year Army vet. I served as a special operations aviator for a good portion of that time. Flew about 10 different platforms while I was in the military between helicopters and airplanes. In 2021, I transitioned out of the military and kind of started working in the defense business sector as a director of business development, as well as a project director for multiple different companies that led me to basically starting my own business, Swann Solutions, where we kind of advise companies on how best to work with the Department of Defense and finding ways to get their products in the right hands of warfighters. But probably the most interesting thing to this conversation is back in about 2019, while I was still on active duty, I was diagnosed with both ADHD and autism spectrum disorder type 1, formerly known as Asperger's, and then served for another about 3 years or so before I actually got out of the military. And as I was going through that personal development journey, if you will, of understanding what ADHD and ASD type 1 really is, I learned so much about what the military as well as other organizations know about neurodiversity, and realized that there was a very large gap in understanding what neurodiversity actually is, what the values of it actually are, how it actually can be applied positively to organizations. And so as I transitioned out of the military, I kind of have made it my personal journey to kind of help spread the good news of what neurodiversity is and what it can do for organizations. So I'm excited to be able to have that conversation with you and your audience today.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for that. So, fast forward to the last few years, after you've gotten out of the military, when you realize all of this stuff, what are you seeing as some of the emerging trends that are from this subject matter that's impacting organizations today?
Well, across the board, what we're really seeing in the neurodiverse community is we're seeing certainly a very large uptick in those people who are either associating with or getting formal diagnoses of neurodivergent, traits. So neurodiversity does include things like ADHD and Asperger's, but also includes things like dyslexia, dyspraxia as well. As Tourette syndrome and many other, potential, learning, formerly, presently known as learning disabilities and learning disorders. Yet what we're also realizing is that even though they may have a disorder and disability in one particular area, they provide a lot of extra interesting value in a bunch of other areas as well. The abilities of an ADHD person to hyper focus on a very specific topic that they're very interested in is really kind of changing the way, computer programming and software development is actually occurring, because these folks can actually take, an extended amount of time and being able to work on a very difficult project and turning it around much faster, much quicker than the average person can, because they're just using their natural, tendencies that they have on a project they really enjoy, which allows them to be able to, offer more, back to the organization. And so what we're also seeing with that is as the younger generations are coming up into the workforce, we're seeing those numbers really increase. Generally speaking, across the board, we know about 10% of the global population is neurodivergent. So simple math, that there's 8 billion people, 800 million people in the world today probably are neurodivergent, and that number is probably small. We actually think that number is probably bigger than that. Here in the States, where we're located, obviously, we're talking, in the lines of, 32 something million people, 35 million people in the states that are neurodivergent today, and that number is certainly going up. As Gen Alpha is starting to come into the workforce, we are seeing Gen Alpha actually being greater than 50% of the entire generation coming in, either associating with or being formally diagnosed with a neurodivergent disorder or disability in some form or fashion as they are moving into the workforce. So bottom line is this: the workforce of tomorrow is going to be drastically different than the workforces of the past. And we cannot necessarily continue to approach the workforce as everyone thinks the same, everyone acts the same. And because of that, we are going to have to start setting the conditions today to be able to enable those future generations to have a place in the workforce of tomorrow.
Wow, so that's rather interesting and some interesting numbers there. And and you and I were having a conversation earlier where it's front and center. Just yesterday, I was in Publix, and in there was a front cover magazine about neurodivergence and ADHD type stuff, a whole magazine dedicated to that. Autism in particular was the one that was there. So what are you seeing in your experience and your paths? What are you seeing are some of the solutions that organizations are trying to implement to encompass this new workforce?
So I have had the pleasure to be able to kind of work with a couple of different companies, large companies who are doing some neurodiverse implementation of some techniques and things. EY is one of them that's out there doing these things, developing these things called neurodiversity centers of excellence. Last I checked, I think there's about 15 or 16 of them around the world or so. And what they're doing is they're building these centers where you can actually blend in specifically hired neurodivergent folks to basically become your own personal think tank for all intents and purposes, merging them either as as a group themselves or merging them with neurotypical folks, applying the lessons learned from both that small working environment as well as the using them as a tool to get after really difficult problems that other folks just seem to not being able to figure out. And they're finding solutions to things that nobody else has been able to really find. That has been a real success story for EY. And again, EY is not doing this from a perspective of, hey, we want to meet DE&I initiatives, or we want to make sure that we're doing things from the perspective of just making us feel better. The reality is they are doing this because it's making them money, and it's making them a lot of money, right? So not only is there a business case to be said. From an HR hiring perspective, we want to hire a certain number of types of people so we can work our tax benefits or whatever. They're also looking at it from the perspective of this is producing solutions that nobody else in the world can produce, and in the process of doing that, it is setting us apart from everybody else in the world. You also see things like this in Microsoft is working with it, Dell. Wells Fargo Bank is another one. So there's a bunch of organizations, major organizations out there that have set up large, conglomerate planning and or initiatives to take neurodivergent folks, bring them into their organizations, and leverage the expertise that these groups have to be able to offer something back to those organizations that nobody else seems to be able to do.
That's really fascinating to hear, and good to hear that there are some organizations really taking advantage of that situation and using it for a bottom line perspective, but really for a changing workplace perspective. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about this. So with the future of work, whether that's AI, remote hybrid, workforce psychology, and workforce evolution overall, where do you see all of this playing out with these other things, other trends, for lack of better words, coming together, as I like to call it, the perfect human capital storm? Where do you see this headed?
So I'm really excited to kind of see where the integration of AI is going to be brought into the workforce. I think what we're going to start seeing is an organization where take a team of 5 or 6 people, whatever it was, you've got a leader and 4 or 5 people that work for them today. I think what we'll see is that we'll see AI bots start replacing, say, 1 or 2 of those people in that organization. But now what you have is you have people leading people and people leading AI bots that through a particular project to find some way to be able to accomplish whatever it is the organization is trying to do. Additionally, you'll also see AI bots almost forming that other human function with those other humans that are on their team. And you're going to have to leverage their expertise as much as they're going to have to help train them in the same spaces with developing, what kind of the standard, protocols look like and that sort of thing. AI is incredibly smart and it can learn a lot, but it doesn't know what right looks like without having a human tell it what right looks like. So what we're seeing is we'll see that partnership at the executor level, and then the leader on top of that is now going to have to figure out how to interact with the human, interact with the AI, and keep the whole team together. So we may see less human bodies in that space, but we'll see more of a diverse, mental shift, if you will, of these work teams going forward. And so the benefit of a neurodivergent team today actually helps blend that basic concept into what the future of work is probably going to be as we start building in some of these bots. Not saying neurodivergent people are like robots, but what they are is they just naturally think different. And so as you take an approach as a leader looking at how do I lead groups of people, we've spent a very large time, and especially in the DE&I space, trying to figure out how to appease basically every group that's out there to make them feel like they're a part of the team. Without getting down to what I believe is actually really kind of the brass tacks of the situation, which is, am I taking on a leadership role and developing people in a perspective where it's helping them interact with each other better, interact with the organization better, or am I taking a role where I'm now focusing on what that individual needs, irregardless of their background and color, race, gender, creed, whatever. And I just take as a leader what does that one individual need, and using the tools that I have developed to get that person what they need to be most successful, and focus in on basically what I call one piece flow. So I've got a little bit of a supply chain background as well, and in supply chain we like to focus on what is that one piece flow through a system, understanding the simplest way of doing it, and then try to see if we can replicate that as much as we possibly can. Well, in this particular case, how can I take one person and provide the leadership tools that are needed for that one person to be successful, and then start looking at each individual person on my team and start applying whatever that individual person needs for their own individual success, because if they're getting what they need, they're then going to turn back around and offer that back to the organization. And so by practicing these tools, basically taking neurotypical people and neurodivergent people that are on your team, practicing with these humans that can now give you feedback, the future of working with the same types of humans as well as working with AI bots will only become easier, because you've already had the practice and are starting applying tools to different kinds of people, but yet still having the same background understanding of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and being able to use your human workforce as that starting point to develop how they're going to interact with each other, and then how you're going to interact with them as a leader, as well as AI and other environments in the future.
That's really interesting. So I want to piggyback on that last one, because what I'd like for you to elaborate a little bit more on is, as we begin to close this out, is what actionable advice would you provide to managers, and particularly and the HR organizations that support them? Because one thing that we both know is out there, alive and well, because we're humans, is our own unconscious bias. So when somebody hears neurodiversity or hears whatever under that umbrella, or DE&I, which is now like a four-letter word for some, and yet instead of looking at it from a positive perspective and how it can actually make a good impact on the organization. So for those managers out there, being human as they are, and have their own unconscious biases, unless of course they have a child or a relative or somebody under this umbrella, and particularly for HR organizations that are helping them out, what advice would you give to them?
So the couple of tools here that I would offer up. So first one, if you're a leader, right? So we'll just look at leader managers, kind of across the board. My advice would be kind of going back to what I said a few minutes ago. If you look at your team and you focus on your team in one of two ways, you focus on them as how do they process and receive information, and do they process and see that information normally or different, essentially. And so if I can take someone who is neurotypical and thinks through the world through a particular lens, then I could say, okay, there's a specific set of tools that I can use on helping lead and guide that individual to find our mutual success at working for this organization. But if I find someone who's neurodivergent, whatever it was, I'm going to have to use a different set of tools to potentially work with them. But I can probably also blend some of the learning that I'm doing as a leader by working with a neurodivergent person that's on my team and giving them the resources that they need to be most successful, and potentially apply some of those same learning tools across both those organizations as well. Again, going back to EY, they've actually seen some significant improvement in their retention rates, as well as their leadership development, that sort of stuff, when they start blending in and leading with neurotypical folks and or neurodivergent folks with a blended team underneath them. They're actually seeing a lot of positive growth and success coming out of those teams and those leaders that they're now being able to put into other places because they're able to learn how to approach problems differently with a human-based focus, right? So one of the things I talk about regularly is putting the human back in humanity. Let's focus in on, what does that one human need to be successful in the workplace? And if we're doing that as leaders, irregardless of how they process it, if we're doing that as leaders, we're only going to build success in our organizations because the humans are the backbone of getting anything done in the organization. So that's kind of part one to your question. Part two, what I would say, especially in the very difficult talent environment that we have today, it's obviously very difficult to necessarily find who you're looking for. As well as with AI support. Again, AI is only as smart as what it's read and what it understands, and what we, the human, has educated on what right looks like. And so, as we're looking out there in the talent workplace, and we need someone who's a out of the box thinker, who has the ability to be able to adapt quickly to other immersive different environments, that sort of thing. These traits speak to folks that are neurodivergent. It's something that they provide naturally that's sometimes not easily translatable onto a resume or into some kind of ATS system or something like that. So the benefit, what I would tell HR folks to do is focus in on working with organizations that are out there that are actually doing some of this neurodivergent hiring. Again, EY and Microsoft are two good examples, like I said before, where they actually bring in their candidates and they just kind of basically do like a week-long assessment process of seeing how they work together, seeing how they work as a team and that kind of stuff, and then offer hiring opportunities after that opportunity to sit down with the team, because what they're realizing is the neurodivergent person may not be able to translate their skills as well. But what they're also seeing is when given the opportunity, they are hitting that ball out of the park, and they're doing a phenomenal job of offering their capabilities back to the organization. And again, the retention rate on those neurodivergent folks, it's in the high 80s and 90s. Like if you give a neurodivergent person a job, there's a good chance you're going to have to kick them out of the office because they're not leaving. Because you gave them a shot and you gave them an opportunity, and they know kind of organically and how they've been raised, most likely, that the only way that I'm going to be able to support my family or just kind of make it out here in life is I'm going to have to work hard and give it all I've got, and that is just kind of built into, I think, all neurodivergent folks. And so, so as HR people are looking for these types of folks, I would encourage you to look outside of your normal scope, as well as see, you can use some examples from other businesses that are already doing this kind of work, and most of them are actually willing to help you. Like you don't even have to figure it out all by yourself. Call them and they'll be more than happy to help you set up something, and that's not even a chargeable thing in most cases. They're actually just looking to try and spread the good news of neurodiversity because they've seen it and they want to help other organizations do the exact same thing. And then once you find these folks, whatever it was, you got to kind of be a little patient with them, right? So, I mean, the reality is this, maybe 20, 25% of neurodivergent folks will never leave their parents' basement. And I fully acknowledge that up front. Would you look at, say, the autism spectrum, for instance, not everybody that is autistic looks like Sheldon Cooper. Obviously, I don't have anything that looks like Rain Man from the early 80s and 90s. But the reality is this: a lot of folks associate neurodiversity with whatever they've seen on TV or in the movies or something like that. And so, if there's a way that we can get folks to separate potentially their own individual biases or their own individual, human nature of, well, I don't want weird people to come work for me, so I'm going to stay away from the folks that are weird. what you actually probably need if you're not seeing the growth and the change in the organization that you actually are looking for. If groupthink is a problem, then you need people who think differently. And neurodivergent folks naturally provide that ability to offer it back to the organization. They may act and look and think a little different, and they may be a little weird for some folks sometimes. But if you're just patient with them and you work with them, they'll be willing to give you 110% of everything they can give, which may be 150% of your other candidates, and you don't even realize it, simply because you or the AI potentially is excluding them from your search engine, all because they didn't write the right thing on their resume per se. So take that time that you have and focus it in on looking for those folks that are out there on the fringes, because it's a very good shot that the person that you're looking for talent-wise to fit that really niche role that's going to help you grow and change your organization for the better is probably out here on the fringes, and there's very likely probably a neurodiverse person out there that can fill that support that you're looking for.
Awesome, Nate. So in closing, two things. One of the terms you use, and I should have asked up front, neurotypical. So I'd like you to share how you define that, number one, and then number two, closing takeaways. Any key thoughts you'd like the audience to take away?
Sure thing. So I actually found a quote from Harvard Health back in 2021 that neurodiversity refers to all people. Right. So neurodiversity is just the basic concept that we all are just a little bit different. We all think a little bit different from one another. Just like you see animal diversity out in the jungle, we don't have a jungle full of cats, and dogs and rabbits and whatever. We have this wide-ranging diversity. The same concept applies with neurodiversity. Neurotypical is just a definition to basically kind of get after, there are a group of folks that generally speaking, and a large population of the world is like this, 80-90%, that all kind of think the same and are going to kind of respond the same to different types of stimuli, if you will, right? So if we go back to, hunter-gatherer days and stuff like that, whatever it was, there are some folks who run after the elephant, and there's some folks who are going to stay at camp. And there's nothing wrong with either one of them. We need both in the world. And so the reality is those folks that are all kind of thinking the same, acting the same, and that sort of thing are probably all neurotypical types. And you can apply a particular set of leadership tools that you've probably learned throughout your entire life, most likely to be able to work with them. And then for the other 10-15% of folks that are out there that are neurodivergent, who just naturally think differently, effectively, have some things that are going to make them have some difficulties in accomplishing certain tasks, depending on what it is that you're asking them to go do. But at the same time, they're also going to be able to give you 200 or 300% what another neurotypical person might be able to do based off of whatever the task is you're trying to accomplish. This is easily accessible, and there are, again, lots of research that's out there for folks to be able to help understand what are the really good positive traits that come from a lot of these neurodivergent backgrounds, as well as what are some of the difficulties, and then how to work through those, both as a leader as well as an HR manager, to help everyone be successful in this environment. And the thing that we're learning is the folks who go through that process and learn how to do this really well, not only do they get the best out of their neurodivergent folks, but they also get their best out of their neurotypicals as well, because they're taking these tools that are beneficial to the human itself and helping that human get better in the workplace. And when I sprinkle that across the entire workplace, everyone feels like they're a part of the team, and everyone gets better, and the whole organization continues to improve, because we took the time and energy to figure out as an organization, as leaders, how do I take these neurodivergent group of folks and help integrate them better into our organization, which then only actually makes the entire organization better, rather than just the small population, and figuring out how to bolt it on, a little bit better to an already well-running organization. Well, it actually comes to find out, it actually helps everyone.
Awesome. So thank you so much for that, Nate. I appreciate it. I hope people are taking some valuable information out of this. A couple of things he mentioned to begin to wrap this up is, one, he talked about, how do you make sure you're including everybody, make sure you're creating an inclusive environment, regardless of the spectrum, because we all know the power of exclusion. As I've always told people in front of me and in audiences, if you can still remember when you were a kid and your friends did not let you participate in an activity, that shows you the power. Here we are as adults, that shows you the power of exclusion. So for all of you that want to learn some more about this, highly recommend you reach out to Nate. You're going to see his contact information in the back. Again, thank you, Nate, for your time. Thank you for your service. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to continuing to work with you because you bring some great information to the table, some data that organizations are usually looking for, particularly to your point, when organizations, HR professionals, managers, and so forth have this bias toward this spectrum of folks in the world, and it's in the millions that are out there. So how do we continue to make them part of the whole organization? So thank you very much, Nate, for your time. You'll have his contact information here in the back end. I appreciate it again. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate the opportunity to share the good news of neurodiversity.
Thanks. We're glad that you stopped by to visit. We're in the business of helping organizations in the growing era of AI become more HI, and that is become more of a human intelligent workplace. And we do that in a variety of ways. We can do speaking engagements. I can come in and speak to you either at executive retreats, at offsites, keynotes, things of that nature, to kind of share with you some of the trends that are taking place and what the implications may be for your organization. Sort of in a way, put a mirror up to your organization and say, these are the things that are happening. Are you ready for them? Are you doing something about it? So that's just one way. Another way we do some work with organizations is through executive coaching, helping from VPs to frontline supervisors, those to soon to be in supervisory, high potential individuals, help them in their development. Also do leadership and team development work. And along with that, we use instruments to help organizations from a consulting perspective help themselves, whether it's the Human Intelligent Workplace instrument or questionnaire to take a sense of, hey, how are we doing in this space? Also, organizational change readiness questionnaire. Are you ready for the changes? What are you missing based on some of this information? And lastly, we also look at leader behavior effectiveness questionnaires. How well are your leaders doing? How do they assess themselves? And how are the workforce assessing them too, whether it be 360 or others? So we're here to help, particularly in this ongoing changing era that organizations are facing, a time of uncertainty, a time where the workplace or the workforce is expecting different things. So hopefully you'll reach out to us and let us know how we can help you out. You can look at some of our information that we have on our website, some of the various podcasts, some of the articles and videos that I've put out there. And hopefully those will percolate and create some thoughts and reflective moments to think about maybe we need to have a discussion with the Human Intelligent Workplace. Thank you very much.